Gildan Media presents Your Coach in a Box, affordable, life-changing audio programs.
The Leadership Challenge, 5th edition, by James M. Kouzes and Barry Z. Posner. Narrated by James M. Kouzes, Barry Z. Posner, and Sean Pratt.
Introduction: Making extraordinary things happen in organizations. Leaders get people moving. They energize and mobilize. They take people and organizations to places they have never been before. Leadership is not a fad, and the leadership challenge never goes away. In uncertain and turbulent times, accepting that challenge is the only antidote to chaos, stagnation, and disintegration. Times change, problems change, technologies change, and people change. Leadership endures. Teams, organizations, and communities need people to step up and take charge. That is why we first wrote the Leadership Challenge and why we found it imperative to write this 5th edition. Change is the province of leaders. It is the work of leaders to inspire people to do things differently, to struggle against uncertain odds, and to persevere toward a misty image of a better future. Without leadership, there would not be the extraordinary efforts necessary to solve existing problems and realize unimagined opportunities. We have today, at best, only faint clues of what the future may hold. But we are confident that without leadership, the possibilities will neither be envisioned nor attained. The Leadership Challenge. The Leadership Challenge is about how leaders mobilize others to want to make extraordinary things happen in organizations. It's about the practices leaders use to transform values into actions, visions into realities, obstacles into innovations, separateness into solidarity, and risks into rewards. It's about leadership that creates the climate in which people turn challenging opportunities into remarkable successes. The publication of this edition of the Leadership Challenge marks 25 years since the book was first released. We've spent more than 3 decades together researching, consulting, teaching, and writing about what leaders do and how everyone can learn to be a better leader. We are honored by the reception we've received in the professional and business marketplace. Although we and other authors regularly contribute new works, we are blessed that students, educators, and practitioners continue to find that the Leadership Challenge is still useful to them, both conceptually and practically, and that it stands the test of time. We persist in asking today the same basic question we asked in 1982 when we started our journey into understanding exemplary leadership. What did you do when you were at your personal best as a leader? We've talked to men and women, young and old, representing just about every type of organization there is at all levels, in all functions, from many different places around the world. Their stories and the behaviors and actions they've described have resulted in the creation of the 5 Practices of Exemplary Leadership framework described in this audio program. When leaders do their best, they model the way, inspire a shared vision, challenge the process, enable others to act, and encourage the heart. The Leadership Challenge is evidence-based. The 5 practices are derived from research, and we illustrate them with examples from real people doing real things. With each edition of the book and the audio program, we update the research, both our own findings and those from other scholars around the globe. And we continue to update the stories, cases, and examples of exactly what people do when they are at their best as leaders. With each new edition, we become clearer ourselves about what really makes a difference. We get the chance to reiterate what's still important, to discard what's not, and to add what's new. We get the chance to contemporize the framework and freshen up the language and point of view so that the book is highly relevant to current circumstances and conditions. We get the chance to let go of tangents, those important but smaller points that can be distracting or make things more complicated than they need to be. We get the chance to be more prescriptive about the best practices of leaders. The more we research and the more we write about leadership, the more confident we become that leadership is within the grasp of everyone and that the opportunities for leadership are boundless and boundaryless. Of course, with each edition, we also get to address a new audience, and sometimes even a new generation of emerging leaders. That opportunity motivates us to collect new cases, examine new research findings, and talk with people we haven't heard from. It encourages us to perform a litmus test of relevance on our results. Does this model of leadership make sense? If we started out all over again, would we find new leadership practices? Would we eliminate any of the practices? In this regard, we are aided by the ongoing empirical data provided by the online version of the Leadership Practices Inventory, LPI. This inventory, which assesses the 5 practices, provides 500,000 to 750,000 responses annually and keeps us on guard and on target in identifying the behaviors that make a difference and the ones that don't seem to matter. And with each new edition, we get a chance to speak again with those of you who have read or heard earlier editions of the Leadership Challenge in school or in the workplace. If you're listening to this audiobook for the first time, welcome. If you are returning to it again, welcome back. Join us in listening to this new edition so that you can learn about and be reminded of the 5 practices and what they look like in action today. Learn more about how you can continue to grow and to develop yourself as a leader. We expect that all of you face vexing issues that not only make leadership more urgent, but also require you to be more conscious and conscientious about being a leader. Others are looking to you to help them figure out what they should be doing and how they can develop themselves to be leaders. You don't just owe it to yourself to become the best leader you can possibly be. You're even more responsible to others. You may not know it, but they're expecting you to do your best.
Well, as Jim just said, you may not know it, but they're expecting you to do your best. So consider the Leadership Challenge a field guide for leaders. How do you get other people to want to follow you? How do you get other people, by free will and free choice, to move forward together on a common purpose? How do you mobilize others to want to struggle to achieve shared aspirations? These are the important questions we address in the Leadership Challenge. Think of it as a field guide to take along on your leadership journey. Think of it as a manual you can consult when you want advice and counsel on how to get extraordinary things done in your organization. In Chapter 1, we establish our point of view about leadership by sharing a personal best leadership experience, a case study about how one leader helped turn her organization around and develop it into an award-winning venture. We provide an overview of the 5 practices, summarize the findings from our more than 3 decades of empirical studies about what leaders do when they are at their best, and show that these leadership practices make a difference. Asking leaders about their personal bests is only half the story. Leadership is a relationship between leaders and followers. A complete picture of leadership can be developed only if you ask followers what they look for and admire in a leader. In the second part of Chapter 1, we reveal what characteristics people value most in their leaders and demonstrate that credibility is the foundation of the relationship between leaders and their constituents. The 10 chapters that follow describe the 10 commitments of leadership, the essential behaviors that leaders employ to make extraordinary things happen, and explain the fundamental principles that support each of the 5 practices. We offer evidence from our research and that of others to support the principles, provide actual case examples of real people who demonstrate each practice, and prescribe specific recommendations of what you can do to make each practice your own and to continue your development as a leader. A Take Action section concludes each of these chapters. Here's what you need to do to make this leadership practice an ongoing and natural part of your behavioral and attitudinal repertoire. Now, whether the focus is on your own learning or the development of your constituents, your direct reports, team, peers, manager, community members, and the like, you can take immediate action on every one of our recommendations. They don't require a budget or approval from top management or anyone else. They just require your personal commitment and discipline. If you'd like a mobile partner or a tool to help you take action along your leadership journey and development path, download the Leadership Challenge mobile tool app, which has been designed to work with these sections, the activities within, and the practices in general. In Chapter 12, we offer a call to everyone to accept personal responsibility to be a role model for leadership. Through 5 editions now of the Leadership Challenge, we keep relearning and reminding ourselves and others that leadership is everyone's business. And the first place to look for leadership is within yourself. Accepting the Leadership Challenge requires practice, reflection, humility, and commitment to making a difference. And in the end, we conclude that leadership is not an affair of the head. Leadership is an affair of the heart. We recommend that you first listen to Chapter 1, but please note that after that, there is no sacred order to proceeding through the rest of this audio program. Go wherever your interests take you. We wrote this material to support you in your leadership development. Just remember that each practice is essential. Although you might skip around this audio program, you can't skip any of the fundamentals of leadership. Finally, technology allows us to offer you insights beyond those in this audio program. On our website, www.theleadershipchallenge.com, you can find out more about how we conducted our research, look at detailed information on our methodology, review statistical data, read highlights of validation studies by other scholars of our leadership paradigm, and sign up for our monthly newsletter. The domain of leaders is the future. The leader's unique legacy is the creation of valued institutions that survive over time. The most significant contributions leaders make is not simply to today's bottom line, it is to the long-term development of people and institutions so that they can adapt, change, prosper, and grow. We hope this audiobook contributes to the revitalization of organizations, to the creation of new enterprises, to the renewal of healthy communities, and to greater respect and understanding in the world. We also fervently hope that it enriches your life and that of your community and your family. Leadership is important, not just in your career and within your organization, but in every sector, in every community, and in every country. We need more exemplary leaders, and we need them more than ever. There is so much extraordinary work that needs to be done. We need leaders who can unite us and ignite us. In the end, we realize that leadership development is self-development. Meeting the Leadership Challenge is a personal and daily challenge for everyone. We know that if you have the will and the way to lead, you can. You have to supply the will. We'll do our best to keep supplying the way. Chapter 1. When Leaders Are at Their Best. Fearless. That's what it says in bold white letters on a black bracelet that Barbie Siegel wears. She borrowed it from her teenage daughter to serve as a daily reminder of the spirit she likes to bring to her role as CEO of Zeno Group, an award-winning, multidisciplinary public relations firm. And it's exactly that kind of spirit that fueled the extraordinary growth and willingness to take risks that PR Week cited in 2011 when it awarded Zeno 2 of its top honors, Agency of the Year and Midsize Agency of the Year. But Zeno wasn't always at the head of its class. When Richard Edelman, president and CEO of Zeno's parent company, Daniel J. Edelman, Inc., called Barbie and asked her to lead Zeno to the next level, the agency was languishing. Barbie, who had honed her craft over 11 years at Edelman and then for 8 years at Ogilvy PR, where she restarted their global consumer marketing practice, was ready for a new opportunity and challenge. Barbie knew that Zeno had a great team and a solid client base, but for them to grow to the next level, she believed that they had to get some early game-changing wins. And to do that, they'd need some of that fearlessness that she proudly advocates for with her bracelet. She would tell them, "We need to stand on our own 2 feet and not be afraid because we're Zeno, that we can't go after this piece of business or that we're not going to be taken seriously." She talked about it as playing ahead of the game, ahead of where we really were. It didn't take long for this focused determination and can-do spirit to spread. One of Barbie's early actions was to hold a day-and-a-half leadership team meeting with her direct reports. Together they talked about such basic questions as, who are we? What are we focusing on? The conversations and sharing of ideas were galvanizing, and during that meeting, they came up with the words that they envisioned as describing themselves. These words, fearless, collaborative, creative, decidedly different, and nimble, are their values and their promise to their clients. Zeno describes itself as providing senior-level strategy and day-to-day engagement, and as having no silos. And you can see this in Barbie's actions. For example, she has spent many a night in the conference room with team members preparing decks for their client presentations. And if she's not working on a presentation, she might be at the local grocer buying snacks to take back to the room. She's present at client pitches. She also spends as much time as she can with staff. Barbie takes this responsibility seriously. I often say I am privileged to lead this team. I am. Without them, we'd be nothing. I need all these people to bring their best game every day. I wake up every day and say, what can I do to make sure these people are happy and energetic, that they're going to stay and continue to give our clients their best work every day? These sentiments are reciprocated by her associates. Allison Walsh, account supervisor, affirms that when you have a CEO who is so ingrained in the agency, staff, and each and every one of the clients, you only want to push yourself further. Because Barbie is so transparent about her values and vision for the organization, there's no question, according to Allison, that people want to follow her. Barbie describes the Zeno corporate culture as one that promotes hard work and continued success, while also encouraging work-life balance and individualism. I'm sure many companies describe themselves as a family, says Barbie, but we take it seriously. For example, there are a lot of women in the firm, and Barbie takes her role as a woman CEO very seriously. I want them to see that it's possible to have a really great career and have a family and do all the things that entails. She talks a lot about her own kids, her husband, her 2 older sisters, and her elderly parents. She'll tell her staff when she goes out to lunch with her parents, I want them to know that it's okay to get out of the office for a couple of hours and tend to their families. She has a photo gallery in her office with lots of family pictures displayed along with photos of agency get-togethers and some of the staff and their babies. I'm very mindful, says Barbie, that the staff is like me. We all have mortgages to pay. Many have children to raise. When I make decisions about what the firm is going to do, I am mindful that at the end of the day, there are hundreds of families depending on our doing right for our clients. Unlike traditional agencies, Zeno is an organization without walls where everyone, regardless of level, routinely works together on all aspects of a client engagement. Everyone is treated with great respect, said Cheryl Pellegrino, Senior Vice President. There's a strong sense of collaboration and teamwork. People genuinely like one another and work well together. It's all for one and one for all. Barbie has structured the organization and assignments so that people literally have to work together with one another, learn from one another, and celebrate together. Marcy Kohenek, account supervisor, adds that whereas many agencies may say they're one team, Zeno walks the walk. Never before have I worked in an office where colleagues are so collaborative, looking out for clients and the teams before themselves, and where individuals from different offices and fields are always working together. Not only does this attitude benefit our clients, who are always being served by a subject matter expert, but as employees, we have the opportunity to constantly grow, working with and learning from colleagues across the country. Zeno is also unique in the PR business in how it manages its books. All offices operate under one P&L. If a client in Chicago needs the expertise of someone in Los Angeles, New York, Toronto, or Sao Paulo, there's no conflict or conversation about it. Barbie said that this means that the staff can just do their best work and don't need to feel pulled by one P&L or another. Everyone is focusing on our client's success. Collaborating across offices to get the job done also facilitates innovation and experimentation. Creativity is hugely important to Barbie. We want to be creative in everything we do, even in the most mundane tasks, she said. This is what, in large parts, keeps Jessica Vital vice president with Zeno. You get countless opportunities to work on exciting projects for clients who are leaders in their field, and the chance to work alongside incredibly smart, passionate people across multiple offices who provide great support and encourage, even push you to grow, she said. This learning environment, Barbie explained, helps all of us to think differently, to be unafraid to experiment, and try some things that have not been done before. There are many celebrations over the year, such as the Friday after-work sing-alongs and other informal get-togethers and recognitions. Barbie established an annual New Year's Eve party every June 30th, the end of Zeno's fiscal year. On that day, all the offices connect by teleconference. They pop champagne and raise a virtual toast. Barbie reflects on what they've accomplished and talks about what's ahead in the future. Then all the offices continue with their own celebrations. In an end-of-the-year email to her staff, Barbie summed up Zeno's achievements and culture. Each of you played a major role in the success of our firm, and each of you are key to the journey that continues. Words of praise should be aimed squarely at you for the amazing work you and your teams have delivered and the ever-deepening client partnerships you are forging. As we close out the year, I am more excited than ever for what's to come. And there isn't a group of professionals I would rather do it with day in and day out. We have much to look forward to. Some days will be harder than others, but we are on a mission to take this firm to greater heights on the shoulders of client trust and partnership, game-changing work, and a talented and highly motivated staff. I think we have seen that when we band together, we can really do it. Barbie is not one to rest on her laurels, though. The recognition Zeno has earned is just the beginning. I can't just live in the present, she said. I've got to always be thinking about the next thing we should be working on and where we're headed, whether geographically or with innovation or talent. No doubt that the next thing is likely to require more of that same fearlessness that got Barbie and her colleagues to where they are today. The 5 practices of exemplary leadership. In undertaking the transformation at Zeno, Barbie Siegel sees the opportunity to change business as usual. And although Barbie's story is exceptional, it is not singular. We've been conducting original global research for more than 30 years, and we've discovered that such achievements are actually commonplace. When we ask people to tell us about their personal best leadership experiences that they believe are their individual standards of excellence, there are thousands of success stories just like Barbie's. We found them in profit-based firms and nonprofits, agriculture and mining, manufacturing and utilities, banking and healthcare, government and education, the arts and community service, and many, many others. These leaders are employees and volunteers, young and old, women and men. Leadership knows no racial or religious bounds, no ethnic or cultural borders. Leaders reside in every city and every country, in every function, in every organization. We find exemplary leadership everywhere we look. And we've also found that in the best organizations, everyone, regardless of title or position, is encouraged to act like a leader. That's because in these places, people don't just believe that everyone can make a difference. They act in ways to develop and grow people's talents, including their leadership abilities. Jun Chin Phom Ko, Director of People Development and Engagement at Infocom Development Authority of Singapore, underscores this thinking when she explains how they are working to build an organization and culture where everyone feels they are leaders, regardless of what they do, and appreciates that what each one of us does has an impact, even a legacy. We first asked people in the early 1980s to tell us what they did when they were at their personal best in leading others. And we continue to ask this question of people around the world. After analyzing thousands of these leadership experiences, we discovered, and continue to find, that regardless of the times or setting, people who guide others along pioneering journeys follow surprisingly similar paths. Although each experience was unique in its individual expression, There were clearly identifiable behaviors and actions that made a difference. When making extraordinary things happen in organizations, leaders engage in what we call the 5 practices of exemplary leadership. They model the way, inspire a shared vision, challenge the process, enable others to act, encourage the heart. These leadership practices are not the private property of the people we studied, nor do they belong to a few select shining stars. Leadership is not about who you are, it's about what you do. The 5 practices are available to anyone who accepts the leadership challenge, the challenge of taking people and organizations to places they have never been before, of doing something that has never been done before, and of moving beyond the ordinary to the extraordinary. Although the context of leadership has changed dramatically since we first began our research 30 years ago, the content of leadership has not changed much at all. The 5 practices framework has passed the test of time. Our research tells us that the fundamental behaviors and actions of leaders have remained essentially the same and are as relevant today as they were when we first began our study of exemplary leadership. You've already learned how one leader, Barbie Siegel, used the 5 practices to lead her colleagues and organizations to greatness, and how she and they are not ready to rest on their laurels. In the remainder of this chapter, we briefly introduce each of the 5 practices and provide short examples that demonstrate how leaders across a variety of circumstances use them to make the extraordinary happen. When you explore the 5 practices in depth in chapters 2 through 11, you'll find over 100 more examples from real-life experiences of people who have taken the leadership challenge. Jim is going to describe to you a little bit about each of those 5 practices.
Model the way. Titles are granted, but it's your behavior that earns you respect. This sentiment was shared across all the cases we collected. David Kim, Senior Operations Manager with Siemens Ultrasound, reflecting on his personal best leadership experience, remarked that everybody is a leader, whether you supervise a group of people or not. Even as an individual contributor, when I transitioned into the corporate world from the Army, I continued to display leadership and take initiative to get the job done. Titles don't make you a leader. It's how you behave that makes a difference. Exemplary leaders know that if they want to gain commitment and achieve the highest standards, they must be models of the behavior they expect of others. To effectively model the way, you must first be clear about your own guiding principles. You must clarify values by finding your voice. Dave Halverson, staff engineer with Intel, observed that you do not need to be a manager with direct reports to be a leader, but you do have to know what your values and guiding principles are. Alan Spiegelman, veteran wealth management advisor with Northwestern Mutual, reinforced Dave's point when he told us, before you can be a leader of others, you need to know clearly who you are and what your core values are. Once you know that, then you can give those values a voice and feel comfortable sharing them with others. But your values aren't the only values. On your team and in every organization and community, others feel strongly about matters of principle. As a leader, you also must affirm the shared values of the group. Eloquent speeches about common values aren't nearly enough, however. Leaders' deeds are far more important than their words when constituents want to determine how serious leaders really are about what they say. Words and deeds must be consistent. Exemplary leaders set the example by aligning actions with shared values. Through their daily actions, they demonstrate their deep commitment to their beliefs and those of the organization. Dr. Jean-Juan Majetti's experience as research project manager at Amgen underscores this observation. Leading by example is more effective than leading by command. If people see that you work hard while preaching hard work, they are more likely to follow you. One of the best ways to prove that something is important is by doing it yourself and setting an example. Jean-Juan's actions spoke volumes about how the team needed to...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?